This week it's a unique episode in that it's not a local outdoors adventure, but rather a hunt that takes place thousands of miles away in some of the most unforgiving terrain out there. I'm talking about the mountains of New Zealand, hunting tahr and red stag. Stay tuned for a great show. Welcome to Jared Scott Outdoors, your source in the field for local outdoor news. As I mentioned earlier, this week I'm changing it up a bit as we follow a few hunters that made a big trip all the way to New Zealand to hunt tahr and red stag. New Zealand is home to some incredibly rough but beautiful country. Now, I didn't make it out there myself, but some guys you've seen in past episodes did. If you're making guesses on who the hunters are, you may have guessed Dan Drake and his buddies, as he's gone out for some fun trips outside of Idaho. Well, if that's who you guessed, you're right. Dan Drake, Bob Potter, and Jerry and Jeff Blaine are our hunters this week. If you're like me, you're interested to see what New Zealand hunting is all about. So let me show you.
This spring we had the opportunity to go over to New Zealand on the South Island, hunt tahr and red stag, and got a great price and a hunt with some great people, and just couldn't pass it up. So this week on Jared Scott Outdoors, we're gonna travel to New Zealand, 7,500 miles away, and show you some footage from everything that was going on there. It was a pretty sweet trip, so I hope you enjoy.
So we start this trip after a very long flight over the Pacific Ocean to the city of Christchurch, New Zealand.
24 hours later, we're in New Zealand. Here we are, just landed in Christchurch. Just coming in. Got Mr. Bob Potter behind me.
And up ahead is Jeff and Jerry Blaine.
Let's go. We're here. Got the video log going here. Loading up the truck. Came to the outfitter's house, got everything situated, gear loaded up. Got a couple vehicles.
Everything we don't need.
On the tailgate is Joseph, one of the hardcore guides for this hunt.
Bob, checking, double checking just like always. Got every freaking piece of gear in the country on his pack.
Long travel day, Dan. We've been freaking going at it for about 28 hours. It's time for bed, I think.
Got to the ranch house tonight. We're gonna get some sleep and
Shoot our guns in the morning and get after it.
shoot the guns, get some gear organized, and get after it for 9 days of hunting.
Here at the house, they got to spend one more comfortable night before heading out into the backcountry. They got to see up close what a good bull tahr looks like, and that just got them more excited for what lied ahead. Now, there's only one way to get into the kind of country they'd be hunting in, and that's with the use of a helicopter. First, all the gear was transported out, and then the hunters all climbed in for their ride. This was their first chance to see up close the country they'd be hunting in. It doesn't take long at all to see how rugged these mountains really are. This is nothing but steep wherever you look. After being dropped off, they set up camp that would be home until the helicopter returned, and then they headed out to see if they could lay eyes on their first tahr. Now, if you look carefully below, you can see some of the guys hiking. This just shows you how big the country really is. It didn't take too long to find some tahr, but this was just a group of nannies with their young and a couple young bulls. Joseph, the guide, let them know that the bigger bulls usually don't hang out with the family groups at this point. So it was off for more glassing. While this bull tahr is so far away that you can't make it out very well, with the help of their spotting scopes, they could see it was a good one. But as Dan zooms out, you can see how far away it was. And unfortunately, there was only a few hours left of daylight, so they'd have to come back in the morning and see if they could find it again. While they didn't find that one, the next day they found a group of bull tar right at the bottom, and even in the river as they were feeding through and around it. Watching the group of bulls, Joseph found that there was one that stood out as a good mature tar.
Just came out of the lift.
The question, could they actually skirt this steep country and get into shooting range without spooking them? After making a plan of approach, they worked their way in and were surprised to find themselves perched directly above them and not much further than 100 yards off. The biggest one happened to be bedded up and was the closest one to them. Bob had first shot today, and this one was definitely a shooter.
Good shot.
The rest of them are right here. Creep up on them.
With that bull down, the rest took off. Unsure if there was another shooter in the mix, Dan got ready as they carefully watched the others. With Joseph's experienced eye, he quickly let them know that the rest were all smaller than what they were looking for, and so they watched them leave and then headed over to check out the bull that Bob got up close.
Look at him. No. Oh, yeah, dude. Oh. I don't know tar, but he's pretty enough for me. Look at that gray on his face. I don't know if that's gray or brown, but. Sweet. Tell how old he is?
5. We'll call him 6, which is about pretty spot on.
So we had 7 bulls. This is the biggest of the group. Put a stock on them, and
Should have picked the bow.
yeah, the way it turned out, we ended up right on top of him. I think that was at most 100 yards.
Yeah.
He happened to be the lead bull and was looking right at us. Smoked him. Bull tar on the ground. Yeah!
Awesome.
Well, work begins now.
The next day found them once again heading out in search of tar. Now there were some spots that were flat, however it was just the bottoms of the canyons. And as you can tell, it was so rocky that it really wasn't much of a break from the rough side hills. This really was some rugged country. Gaining some elevation, the hunters found a group of nannies, kids, and a few small bulls. Here you can see 2 young bulls as they fed across the incredibly rocky hillside. You'll see in a moment how hard this rock spree is to get around for us two-legged guys. Getting closer for a better look, they actually spotted another nice bull. Now it was Dan's turn to see if he could tag his first tar. This would be a long 500-yard shot, so he needed a steady aim and a good rest. It's so far off that you can't see the bull too well, but Dan got ready and gently pulled the trigger. While they weren't sure of the hit at this point, it turned out that he drilled it, a very well-placed shot.
Just over him. He's coming. He's running right towards us. Hey, he's hit. He's bleeding hard. He's hit. Is he coming down?
The problem? The bull piled up in some very thick vegetation right in the middle of all the rock spree. Here we've got Bob filming from the other side as Dan and Joseph headed in after it.
Dan made a shot just over 500 yards, and this bull tar went into one of the nastiest patches of what they call matagari. It's thorny bush, kind of a tree.
With the rocks sliding out from under them, sometimes it seemed they weren't making any progress at all. Eventually, after a lot of tired muscles, sweat, scrapes, and rock-filled shoes, they found it piled up in the brush. However, their troubles weren't over yet. They still needed to get this bull off the hillside and to a point they could work on it.
There he is. Nice bull tar. Looks like a really good one.
Joseph fought it a bit in the brush before finally getting it freed up. Then by a combination of dragging, riding, and guiding it down the rock spree, they got it to the bottom.
Well, here we are in New Zealand. Just got my first bull tar. He's a pretty good representative of what they have to offer over here. This is a great bull. He's not extremely old, and he's, you know, just a good mature animal. Great sized body and everything. And got 11-inch horns. Just a beautiful animal. Can't say enough about this country over here. It's just amazing. You know, it's up and down and around and everything in between. It's amazing. These animals are some of the toughest in the world. They just live in this stuff year round, and it's amazing. So this is the second day of our hunt. Bob got a great bull yesterday, and today it was my turn, so we made a pretty good 500-yard shot on him, and he acted like he wasn't even hit. He just kind of came over. He was quartering away just a little bit. I got him right here, and just came out right there perfect. Got his lungs, and he went down into the Matagari and died. So just awesome. Just a great experience over here, and we're just beginning. I mean, we've got 7 days left. We've got another tar to go after, and we've also got a chamois that we're gonna hit up a little different area and go look for some chamois too. So just an amazing place. Can't say enough about it.
With everyone tagged out, their ride back to civilization came and got them. Part 1 of the hunt was over, with part 2 up next.
Hunting tar is a lot like hunting mountain goats. It's just, you're in real steep rocky terrain, and the only difference is you're in New Zealand, first of all, and they like that big tussock grass, that big tall grass. They come down out of the rocks and feed in that at night, and so you have an advantage. So anyway, great trip. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that footage of tar hunting, and now we're off to the other side of the South Island and hunt red stags above the ocean there in a little town called Kaikoura, and it was just amazing. Well, here we are. We just pulled into Reefton, which is on the west coast of the South Island here in New Zealand. Gonna try and go in looking for some chamois, but weather's kind of got us socked in for the moment, so they can't fly us into the top of the mountain, so we're just going to kind of hang out and wait. Can't really get anywhere or do anything until the weather clears up, so we're just kind of hanging down here in town, and just a hurry up and wait game, which is unfortunately sometimes the case when you're hunting in unpredictable climates. So, you know, we're just going to kind of wait it out and see what happens.
After trying to wait the weather out for 3 days, their guide offered to hunt the other side of the island for red stag instead of chamois, as the area the red deer live in usually has better weather conditions. Everyone agreed, and so it was off for a drive to another part of the island. While driving, they witnessed literally tens of thousands of dolphins that were cruising along the island. Some people were taking advantage of this phenomenon by swimming with the dolphins, while other boaters got right in close with them. Our hunters, however, just took a brief stop to watch the amazing sight, and then it was back on to find red stag. Now, these mountains are already looking more familiar to the kinds of mountains we hunt here, which makes sense as they're now hunting a deer species and not the Himalayan tar that like the much more rugged terrain. Red deer, or as some call them red stag, look similar to our elk in antler configuration, but are smaller bodied. As the name implies, they're actually a deer and have a red color to their hide. Getting into the country with the red deer, and with the help of their guides, they were able to find lots of hinds, which are the female red deer. While they found a lot of hinds, along with some small stags, it took a bit of work before finally finding a handful of nice stags to look over. Now, if you've ever seen a mounted red stag, chances are what you were looking at was much bigger than what these hunters are looking at right now. Dan and his partners found out that those exceptionally large red stag are usually more of what we consider a high fence kind of hunted animal. The red deer that are actually more typically found in the public land get to around the antler size of what we would call a raghorn bull with our elk. Of course, during the equivalent of their rut, some big ones show up that were good at hiding, but in general, the wild ones don't typically get as big as what you see mounted. So with that being said, as you look at these red deer, they're actually on the bigger end of what is found outside of the private fenced ranches. So here they are looking across this hillside that has several bulls feeding. Again, today Bob had first dibs, and he picked what he thought was the best stag of the group. They were out to about 500 yards, so not a chip shot by any means. Picking the stag that you see on the bottom of the screen, Bob took aim while Dan was getting a bead on one outside of the screen up to the left.
High and to the right. High and to the right.
That was an obvious miss, as you can see it hit up and to the right. Dan missed his stag as well. At the shots, all the stags and hinds started on their way out. Many of them, including the two bulls they shot at, hung tight and allowed them to get back on them for another shot. That time, Bob made a good hit on his bull, the one in the center that's now working to the right.
There's one dying.
Dan waited for another to hold tight and then tagged
He's
his
dying,
stag at
isn't
the
he?
top of the screen.
He's 550. Yes! Good shot.
While Bob's hit was good, the bull still didn't drop easily, and when it did, it fell off a 200-foot cliff down below. Here you can see the stag several hundred feet below where it stopped rolling. It was actually shot clear up above the rock ledges you see now. Unfortunately, earlier in the day, Dan had left his video camera on one of the points they were spotting from, and so he wasn't able to get any video of his red stag. However, they did take a bunch of photos and he got a hold of them. As you can tell, not too bad. Because Bob's red stag had taken such a beating falling down those cliffs, its condition made it where it's not anything you'd want to see now. Now the camera's following behind Jeff and Jerry Blaine as they try to fill their tags for red deer. This bull was just a little bit too young, and so they all decided to pass on it, even though they were running out of time in a hurry. Off in the distance, they spotted another possible shooter and started making tracks.
Well, we just saw a little red stag. Bob's getting an itchy trigger finger. I think I'd probably shoot him if I wouldn't have already seen that one from last night. Last day, rolling the dice. We'll see what happens.
When they spotted this nice stag, it was Jeff's turn to settle in for a shot. As you can see, he made a good hit, and it went down quickly after disappearing in the brush.
There we go, Jeff.
All right. He shot me a red stag with Jeremiah and Dan and Joseph.
Jeff, congratulations.
You know, being able to harvest a free-ranging red stag in New Zealand was one of the highlights of my hunting expeditions so far, and I've done some pretty cool stuff, but that was awesome being up there in that country. And you know, whether you're hiking in the mountains of Idaho looking for critters or shed antlers or what have you, or over in New Zealand, it's just all an adventure. And I always recommend that everybody just get out and explore to the best of their abilities and just have a great time enjoying the wilderness. And just like to thank you for watching today.